Let's talk about that feeling. You know the one? It's late at night, you're staring at a textbook, and you've read the same sentence like 5 times, but the words just aren't sticking. You can feel that little knot of panic starting to form in your stomach as you look at the mountain of stuff you still have to get through. Yeah, that feeling. Today, we're going to take that feeling apart, piece by piece, and figure out how to beat it.
It's so true, isn't it? It's a physical thing. It's that cold weight in your gut when you see all the assignments, all the theorems, all the practice problems just piling up, and your brain just shuts down. It screams, nope, it's too much. I can't do this. It literally feels like you're drowning, totally overwhelmed by this flood of information. Okay, if any of that sounds familiar, I need you to just stop for a second and take a breath, because I want you to hear this loud and clear. The problem isn't you. You are not stupid, and you are absolutely not alone in feeling this way. This is a battle so many of us face, and if you want the tools to actually win it, make sure you subscribe to Brain Power Academy. We're all about learning smarter, not just harder.
So if it's not a personal failure, then what in the world is going on? Well, the truth is, you're living in what we could call the era of curriculum overload. In this first part, we're going to pull back the curtain and see how the system itself is pretty much designed to make you feel like you're failing. This right here is the perfect way to think about it. Imagine the entire education system trying to pour a giant 1-gallon jug of knowledge into a tiny pint-sized glass that represents a single semester. It's going to spill, right? That spill isn't your fault, it's just physics. It was always going to happen. It doesn't matter how great the information is, it's just too much, too fast.
And this slide, this is where we see the system's biggest mistake. It treats your brain like a computer hard drive, thinking it can just upload data and you'll be good to go. But your brain isn't a piece of hardware. It's a living thing. It doesn't just store data. It has to understand it, connect it, build structures with it. And guess what? It gets tired. It feels stress. It can't just save 1,000 disconnected files and call it a day. Have you ever felt like your brain was just
And that leads directly to this. When that fire hose of information is blasting you, your brain does what any brain would do. It panics. It flips into survival mode. And in survival mode, you stop asking the important questions, like, why does this actually work? Instead, you start desperately trying to memorize, how do I do this just to pass the test? And you end up building this incredibly fragile house of cards in your head, made of thousands of disconnected facts. Is it any wonder you feel completely exhausted?
Okay, think about packing a suitcase for a trip. If you just cram and shove everything in there, the lid's never going to close. But if you take a minute to fold your clothes, to organize things, to put shoes here and shirts there, suddenly it all fits. It's the same amount of stuff, right? It's just organized intelligently. The secret to surviving math overload isn't about pulling more all-nighters. It's about learning how to fold the information. And hey, if you've ever felt like that overstuffed suitcase, do me a favor and hit the like button. Let's show other students they're not alone in this.
So to actually learn how to fold information, we have to snap out of that rigid, step-by-step panic mode that overload puts us in. We need to wake up our strategic brain. So let's try a little brain teaser. All right, picture a regular, old-school clock face in your mind, with the numbers 1 through 12. Here's the challenge. Can you draw one single straight line across it that divides the numbers into 2 groups where the sum of the numbers in each group is exactly the same? Don't even think about a calculator. Just visualize it. Now, what's the first thing our panicked, overloaded brain wants to do? It starts grinding. It goes, okay, 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10. This is the mental equivalent of trying to push a car instead of starting the engine. It's the brute force method, and it is a one-way ticket to burnout. But hold on, let's try a different way. A strategic brain doesn't just start adding. It steps back, and it looks. It asks different questions. Where's the pattern here? Where's the balance point on this circle? Instead of crunching numbers, you're looking for the underlying structure, the symmetry of the whole thing. And boom, here it is. The line goes right between the 9 and the 10, and the 3 and the 4. You see what happened? One group takes the biggest numbers, 10, 11, 12, and balances them with the smallest ones, 1, 2, 3. The other group is just all the numbers smack in the middle. And look at that. Both sides add up to 39. The magic aha moment came from seeing the balance, not from doing the boring addition. And this, right here, is the whole point. The students who seem gifted, the ones who make it look easy, they're not some kind of human calculator. They're not adding any faster than you are. They just instinctively look for the symmetry first. They see where to draw the line. They end up doing way less work because they saw the hidden structure from the get-go. And that is the secret to getting out of the overload trap.
So the big question is, how do you learn to see that symmetry when you're buried under a pile of homework and you have a test breathing down your neck? Well, it all starts by recognizing the lies that the traditional way of schooling has taught us about what learning even is. These are the lies that keep us stuck in that survival mode.
The first big lie is coverage. Your teacher rushes through a chapter just to say they covered it. But covering material isn't learning it. It's just putting a blanket over it. It creates the illusion of progress, but leaves you with a paper-thin understanding. The second lie is isolation. This idea that algebra and geometry are totally separate things, when really they're just two different windows looking at the same amazing structure.
But honestly, the most damaging lie of them all is the third one. This myth that being fast means you're smart. That is such a trap. Think about it. When you learn to drive a car, you don't start by flooring it at 60 miles an hour on the highway, do you? No, you'd crash. You start slow. You're cautious. You build the fundamental skills one by one. Speed comes way, way later. It's a natural result of true mastery, not the goal itself.
This is so incredibly important, I can't stress it enough. You have to give yourself permission to be slow. Taking 1 solid hour to truly, deeply understand a core concept is 1,000 times more valuable than spending 10 hours frantically memorizing a bunch of rules you're just going to forget next week anyway. Slowing down right now is the only real way to build the strong foundation that lets you go fast later on.
Okay, so now you know the problem isn't you, and you know the lies that are holding you back. But knowing all that isn't quite enough, is it? To really fight back against this overload, you need a whole new toolkit. You need a method for finding those key essential ideas in a curriculum that's just packed with noise. And for me, that toolkit was born out of my single biggest academic failure. This number, 42%. For a very long time, this number was like a brand. It was a big, angry red circle at the top of a test paper that got handed back to me when I was 16 years old. And I was furious. I was so mad because I had done everything they told me to do. I gave up my entire weekend. I stayed up for nights on end studying. I worked harder than pretty much anyone in that class. I followed all the rules, and the system just chewed me up and spat me out with a failing grade. But here's the crazy part. That moment of total failure, that humiliating 42%, looking back, it was the absolute best thing that ever happened to my education. Because it completely shattered my belief in just working harder and forced me, out of sheer desperation, to find a completely different way to learn. So, how did hitting rock bottom lead to discovering the actual strategy that the top 1% of students use? That's the story we're going to unpack in part 2, where I will show you the exact technique for finding the load-bearing beams of any subject, so you can focus on what really matters. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss it. Share this with anyone you know who's struggling with overload. And drop a comment below. What was your 42% moment? A time when failure actually taught you something important? I'd love to hear it. All right, welcome back to Brainpower Academy. If you were here for part 1 of our series on the architect's mindset, you know we dug into a fundamental flaw in how most of us are taught to study. Today, we're going to build on that, and I'm going to show you the powerful alternative. So in part 1, we really hit on this hard truth, didn't we? Cramming, that last-minute panicked attempt to just shovel information into your brain, it's a design failure. It just doesn't work for real learning. But today we get to the good stuff. We're going to uncover the secret of those students who seem to just get it, the ones who rarely seem to memorize anything at all.
You know, I want to start with a story, and it all comes down to this number, 42%. That was my test score. I can still picture it, sitting in this kind of damp classroom, just staring at that number in red ink. And my scratch paper? Oh man, it told the real story. It was just this chaotic mess of every single formula I had tried to brain dump the second the test started, because I was terrified I was going to forget them.
My teacher, this guy Mr. Harrison, he didn't even yell at me. He just kind of looked at my mess of a paper, tapped it, and said something that just completely rewired my brain. He said, "You are working way too hard, kid. You're trying to carry the ocean in a bucket." And at the time, that sounded absolutely insane. I thought the reason I was failing was because I wasn't working hard enough. He was about to show me I had it all backwards. And that, right there, that brings us to this massive lie that most of us are told about learning. We get this idea that being a top student is about having a better memory, right? About being able to just hold more stuff in your head. But that's not the game. It's not the game at all.
And this was the absolute bombshell Mr. Harrison dropped on me. He said the kids getting 98%, they weren't memorizing 10 times more stuff than I was. He said they were memorizing almost nothing. They were running on a completely different operating system.
They weren't just storing facts. They understood the structure so deeply they could rebuild any piece of it from scratch whenever they wanted.
Okay, so think of it like this. You've got two kinds of students. On one side, you have the brick collector. This is the person who's just frantically grabbing individual facts and formulas. Their memory is super fragile, and their anxiety during a test is through the roof. But then you have the architect. They don't care about the individual bricks as much as they care about the blueprint. They can derive the details because they understand the core principles. Their knowledge is solid, and because of that, their anxiety is low.
This, right here, is the total mindset shift we're talking about. The goal isn't to have the biggest pile of bricks. The goal is to deeply understand the architectural plans. Because once you have the blueprint, you can build whatever you need. So the big question is, how do we actually do this?
Okay, so our first real practical technique, I call it the cheat sheet challenge. And trust me, it completely flips the whole idea of studying on its head. Instead of asking, how much can I cram in, we're going to ask, what's the absolute minimum I need?
Here's the game plan. You're going to grab one single sheet of paper. That's it, just one. Your mission is to write down the absolute smallest amount of information you would need to rebuild the entire chapter from scratch. We're not looking for a bunch of facts, we're hunting for the seeds, those core foundational ideas that everything else grows out of.
You know, a perfect place to see this in action is something like trigonometry. Your textbook might throw this nightmarish list of like 20 different identities at you to memorize. But an architect sees that you really only need a couple of seeds. You need that main Pythagorean identity and the sum formulas. That's pretty much it. The double angle formula, for example, isn't some new thing to memorize. It's just what you get when you plug an angle into the sum formula with itself. You're not memorizing a list anymore, you're understanding a system. And here's the crazy part, the psychological magic of this whole thing. The second your brain realizes it can rebuild the information anytime it wants, it stops freaking out about forgetting it. And in that calm, confident state, your natural memory just starts working way, way better. It creates this amazing positive feedback loop.
So if this whole idea of compressing knowledge and actually reducing your stress, if that's clicking for you, then seriously take a second and subscribe to Brainpower Academy. We're all about working smarter around here, and we've got a lot more deep dive strategies coming your way.
All right, technique number 2. This one is more of a diagnostic tool. It's for that exact moment. You know the one. You're in a lecture, the professor is a mile ahead, and you feel that hot wave of panic because you are completely and totally lost.
See, when you get lost on some advanced topic, it is almost never because the new, complex idea is too hard. No, it's because you've got a crack in the foundation somewhere. You're trying to figure out how to put the roof on the house, but you don't even realize you're missing a wall on the first floor. So instead of panicking, just stop. Pinpoint the exact spot where things went sideways and ask yourself this one simple, powerful question. What is the one thing I need to know to make this step make sense? And once you find that gap, you ask the question again about that concept. You just keep tracing it back step by step until your feet are on solid ground.
It's wild. So many of us just try to power through, to force our way through these advanced topics when we're shaky on the basics. It's like trying to sprint a marathon on a broken ankle. It makes no sense. The fastest, most efficient thing you can do is to stop, go back, and fix that one little crack in the foundation. It might take you an hour, but I promise you, once it's fixed, the sprint will feel easy.
Okay, so let's get really practical. This architect's mindset isn't just for studying late at night. It becomes a real-time error correction tool you can use during an actual test. Your own logic becomes your safety net. Okay, think about something simple, like the formulas for a circle. We all know them, right? But under pressure, it's so easy to mix up area and circumference. A brick collector just panics and guesses, but an architect performs a quick reality check. They know that area is a two-dimensional space. It's measured in square feet, right? So its formula must have a unit that's squared, like r squared. And circumference, well, that's just a one-dimensional length, so its formula has to have a unit to the power of 1, just r. If you accidentally write down that area is 2 pi r, that little voice in your head, that logical safety net, just screams, wait, that's a length, not an area, and you catch the mistake before it ever happens.
All right, so how do we bring this all together when the pressure is really on? Let's talk about our final challenge, actually building your own skyscraper of knowledge.
And I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great, but my test is literally tomorrow. I don't have time to build a foundation, I just need to cram. And I get it, I really do. That pressure is real. But that short-term fix is exactly what keeps us stuck in this cycle of panic and anxiety in the first place. This is the problem right here. Every time you cram, you're basically trying to build the 50th floor of a skyscraper on a foundation of wet cardboard.
You might get something up temporarily, but it is guaranteed to collapse. If you want to build high, you have to be willing to first build deep. I promise you, truly mastering one concept is a way better long-term investment than just skimming 10.
So, here's what I want you to do this week. This is your challenge. I want you to pick one topic, the one that really scares you, the one that makes your stomach turn a little bit. But don't you dare solve a single problem yet. Instead, go all the way back to the beginning. Why was this thing even invented? What problem does it solve in the world? Try to draw a picture of it. And finally, see if you can explain the core idea to a 5-year-old. That is how you build a real foundation.
And listen, I need to leave you with this one last really important thought. If you struggled with learning, if you felt like you're not smart enough, you are not broken. Your brain is an absolute supercomputer. It's just been running on bad, inefficient software instructions. This architect's mindset, this is your system upgrade.
You can absolutely learn anything. You just have to give yourself permission to slow down and find the blueprint. If this helped you at all, please share it with someone else who's ready to stop working so hard and start working smarter. And now I really want to hear from you. What is that one topic that has always haunted you? Drop it in the comments below. Let's start a real conversation, and let's dismantle that fear together.